Travis Wayne Goodsell. Got to run again after the 2 mornings of snow. This one, before I went to bed last night, I wanted to check the response time of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, LDS Church, for Kay Birmingham's lawsuit. She's got the class action lawsuit against the church, which is still just being sat on by the judge after their hearing on February 13th. He's refusing to make a decision as to whether to move forward with the case or not. But I checked, and Kay filed on the 5th of August, 2019. And then the summons was 6th and 7th. She was able to pay to serve the church. And the church then took 22 days from the filing, which after the second service, 20 days. 20 days out of 30 allowed. 27th of August. 4 days before I filed mine. August was when the church retaliated against Kay and Gaddy by firing Judge First. But then Judge Waddups, knowing that Judge First had gotten fired, assigned her to my case. And so Judge First, on November 1st, after refusing to respond to the motion for service of process, because I was approved for informa pauperis. I can't pay service processors. And so by law, she is required to order that the marshals deliver on my behalf for free. And she refused to do that. And so I kept filing further what I thought was addendums to the lawsuit. And so Judge First thought, we got him. And she held a hearing on the 1st of November to dismiss my case. She had been fired for allowing Kay's case to go through. And so now she was trying to make amends and dismiss my case. But I threw a bombshell in that hearing where I exposed the church of having paid the person who had me disappeared in 2008, that they were still paying that person. I had evidence. And so the Judge First gave me a 30-day extension, and thus my filing on the 25th of November, within the 30 days. But then she ignored me since. No service of process, and I was trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I serve the church if I don't have any money and the judge refuses to respond? I sent in a second motion saying that, trying to argue that because the judge is refusing to respond to a legal and lawful order to order the service of process, that therefore she has accepted the case on the church's behalf. And still nothing, no response. And so I call for her recusal, as well as Judge Waddups, because he was the one who assigned her, knowing that she had been terminated and was leaving at the end of April. And still silence. And on the second motion, I justified the urgency of ordering the motion for service because I caught the church trying to cover up that they had been paying this person in 2008. And so thus the additional evidence with the postal service badge that I had. I was a federal employee at the time I was disappeared. They never took me to trial. I was never found guilty, which means they made an unlawful arrest and disappearance of a federal officer. I was cleared of any wrongdoing. And so they blew it by making the false arrest of a federal officer. And it didn't help that the federal government didn't step in to say, hey, hold on, Utah. Because I have an FBI file too. But they were sleeping with Mark Shurtleff as they refused to hand over documents in his corruption case, if you remember his corruption case. Because the FBI refused to hand over the necessary documents, the prosecution had no other option but to let Shurtleff go, especially after his partner in crime that he had succeed him also get acquitted by fellow Mormons protecting one of their own. And so the whole criminal case just blew up here in Utah. That's how corrupt Utah is. The Mormons defend their own and allow corruption to stand. And the Mormons don't get it. The church won't protect them. The church keeps shaking down the Mormons for more and more money. Nelson did it last night. Shaking Mormons down for fast offerings. Because the church is closed. If you're not going to church, there's no need to fast, there's no need to pay tithing, but the church is still demanding money during this time. And so he ordered a fast for this Sunday for coronavirus as a medical doctor. And he dismisses medical field by saying, we're going to hold a fast and magically make this coronavirus disappear. Pay me money now. Utah is the biggest per capita in the world of victims of scams. Mormons are gullible. And in often cases, it's fellow Mormons who are committing the scams, bishops and such. And we have the pyramid schemes patterning themselves after the church's missionary recruitment pyramid scheme. USANA, for example, the biggest one. Pyramid schemes are illegal in Utah, but they allow the big name Mormons to keep running their businesses because the church is also doing it. And so, yeah, it's well past 20 days. I served the church with a Rule 4D, the waiver of summons. So, those who donated on GoFundMe should have gotten your money back, or should get it back today, because I refused to respond to give my routing number to GoFundMe. So today you should be getting your money back, because it wasn't enough anyway. But thanks for trying to help out. But I found the waiver of summons, and with the waiver of summons, I don't have to have a certified mail. I don't have to notify the court. But I did notify the court, the judges, and fulfilled the requirements for the entry of default on the 31st of March, because that's the deadline for the church. And as you can tell, they've gone past the 20 days. Yeah, the 20th. If they were to be consistent with Kay's case, they would have filed a dismissal on the 20th, and they refused. They're choosing to ignore me, as Judge First is choosing to ignore me. So maybe they're following her lead, thinking that Judge First is going to protect them by just ignoring me, which is a direct violation of the rules of judges and even the law. They can't ignore me. I've got a First Amendment right, and it was approved as a legitimate case. And so they have no choice but to allow the case to proceed. The defendant has to form a defense, or they are in default. That they have chosen not to respond. And because there is a certain sum, everything, that's my certain sum, a complete takeover of everything they own and operate. That's why I was collecting all of the list of assets that the church has, to assemble them all together for the 31st submission to the courts. And so the church doesn't get a hearing. The church does not get an opportunity to say, hey, show us the evidence. I'd love to show the evidence. I've been doing it here on my YouTube channel instead. And they know, because the evidence was what they used against me. And so if you're familiar with the book of Esther, the device built to murder the Israelites was used to destroy the maker of the device. And so the lawsuit that the church built to destroy me back in 2008 is now being used to destroy them. That's how it works. And we just passed Purim, the celebration of that event, and now we're coming up on Passover, where the lamb's blood is spread on the doors of the Hebrews. Now, if you're familiar with Semitic Hebrew, which is a later alteration of Paleo Hebrew, or Phoenician as it's also called, the Semitic Hebrew word for Daleth is door. And if you're not familiar with who spells out with two double D's, well, it's not two double D's, that's a redundancy of speech. Two D's, double D's, that's David. The kingdom of David. That's what Moses was symbolizing there, is that the restoration of the kingdom of David. And this was Moses. Isn't David after Moses? No, it's the 18th dynasty. That's why Akhenaten is Moses. The 18th dynasty was the David-Moses dynasty. The phonetic equivalent to the Tawut Moshe. Tawut. And so Moses was restoring the kingdom of David. And the 18th dynasty. And thus the virus was the final plague, when Pharaoh finally relented and said, "You may go. Take the Egyptians' money and go." And Moses left and went into the desert. And so The author messed all that up because history didn't go out the way that he wanted to. So the story of Moses is actually apocalyptic literature. It didn't happen that way, but the author is using historical characters to create an apocalyptic narrative. Like the Gospels. Herod, he died before Jesus was born. And then Jesus is born on 2 different dates, neither of which are the date which he is supposed to be born. So the Gospels author really messed it up. But they too are apocalyptic literature. As John the Revelator, in Revelation chapter 12, clarifies Jesus being born in the house of bread, being born of a virgin. That's Virgo, the constellation of Virgo. The man-child is Jupiter. And so Revelation 12 is the clarification of the one date given in the Gospels of being born of a virgin in the house of bread. The house of bread star, which is right there at the entrance or the exit of the womb, or the entrance of the womb of the virgin, and thus the virgin birth, because it's Virgo. It's not a physical reality up in heavens, because the stars aren't human, but they were personified anthropomorphically as human, and thus the Immaculate Conception that Christians have misunderstood. And so, but again, like I said, that's not his birth date. That's the beginning of the battle, the birth of the battle. And the Egyptians signified that by the sun darkening, because Horus, the man-child, son of Osiris, is the one who goes to battle against his brother Set, who murdered his father and usurped the kingdom, Jacob, the kingdom. And so when Moses is saying we're putting the lamb's blood on the doorposts, that's the sacrifice of Osiris, as he is representing Horus, the son of Osiris, restoring the kingdom of David that had been usurped by Set. And thus the 19th dynasty had as their god Set, because they had usurped the 18th dynasty, of whom the kings were given a Horus name. And so thus the latter days, and the sun darkening on 21st of August 2017, and then again crossing over southern Illinois, which is Little Egypt, because that's where the Knights Templar buried gold plates, treasure plates, precious writings. Had done that. And so Joseph Smith knew all this. The Smiths knew all this. They were in the York Rites, which the highest degree is the Knights Templar. And William Morgan came to Smith's Lodge, because Smith Sr. was a Master Mason. And somebody sent me the phonetics. Canandaigua? I forgot to memorize it and write it down. But apparently there's a YouTube channel too. Yeah, that's why the Book of Mormon was written, guys. To warn the world of the Antichrist, of the Scottish Rites Illuminati, Lodge, of whom Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball came from. And they murdered Joseph Smith, as Joseph Smith believed was going to be the case, in July 19th, 1840. Brigham Young chose not to put that in the Doctrine and Covenants. Along with the King Follett Discourse, he refused to put in the Doctrine and Covenants. And I tried to at least put a little footnote when I was working on the footnotes for the church to reference the King Follett Discourse. And they said it would be too big. No, it's not too big. Look at this one. It fills up the whole bottom row of footnotes. They just made excuses not to put it in. But it's quite simple. I just wanted to let Mormons know that Joseph Smith had altered the translation of the Masoretic Hebrew text, and that was significant. And I did want to do a video. It would take some time because I'm not sure if I should put the pictures on there and talk over the pictures, or if I should put the picture on, then talk, then put another picture on, then talk. It takes time. But I was going to explain how Joseph Smith was going to translate the book of Joseph. We've all assumed that Joseph didn't do it because he had given it to Oliver Cowdery to do. But yet, look at facsimile number 2, figure number 3. That came from the book of Joseph, that papyri. And so Joseph giving an explanation gives us clues as to the manner in which he was intending to translate the book of Joseph. And if you didn't know, facsimile number 3 was not translated, but he gives an explanation there. And I've already done the translation of that. It may not be complete. I could probably do some edits, but I've done a translation of it using the pattern that Joseph Smith used, because I'm the decipherer of petroglyphs in Egyptian. I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, I deciphered Egyptian petroglyphs. I published examples. And so facsimile 1, 2, and 3 were examples, along with other Egyptian petroglyphs. And so, yes, I know exactly how to translate the book of Joseph, the facsimiles, the petroglyphs, because Joseph set the pattern. And so I could do it his way, or I could do it my way. If I did it my way, Mormons would complain. Scientists would go, oh, that's interesting. But Mormons would complain. It's not the way Joseph would have done it. It doesn't plagiarize the King James Version of the Bible. Mormons. So, yeah, the church failed. They're corrupt, and they're refusing to respond. And so I will be going in, number 1, Rule 55, B1, 1B1, I think. And it's to the clerk. And so all we need is the judge to give the order after I submit it. Because the church doesn't need to be a part of it now, because they've chosen not to be. And because it's a certain sum, everything, that's a certain sum. You know, it's not a portion that needs to be tallied up for the damages caused by a car accident or fire damage caused by arson, you know, not stuff like that. No, this is everything. The church cannot exist. They have to be completely decimated, because they are, like I said, still attacking me. I got death threats from the lawyers during this time period of when I filed. Death threats. Gangster-style death threats. And so, it's over. And I hope Judge First will do the right thing. She's leaving anyway. All she has to do is give the order. Granted. Order for the plaintiff in the sum of everything, as listed in the assets listing that I will list. And then the collections agency that I have contacted already and have indicated, give us a call once we get that judge's order. They're ready to go. They're still sending me advertisements. And so, once I find out that the judge has given the order, I immediately will be contacting this company, and they will be seizing the assets of the church. That's how simple it is. So, alrighty. We're done, I guess. Just wanted to let you know